Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Johnny Consciousness. I'm John Moore, your host. I'm recording this on July 9th, 2026, and hope to get it out on the 11th, which is, I believe, a Saturday. I can't believe it's been 12 days since I covered the book I had read called UAPs in the Afterlife by Dr. Christopher Noel. I had planned to go through chapter by chapter by chapter, which I did, I believe, in the last video I did on the book. I did, I believe, the introduction in 1 and 2. So today I'm going to go over chapter 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm not going to go into great detail. I mainly broke it down into an outline, and by me, I mean an AI YouTube studio helped me develop the script based on the information I gave it from reading the book. So I just want, and it was a great help in getting this program ready. So here we go, chapter 3, 4, 5, and 6. And again, just to be clear, I'm just sharing the doctor's outline of that particular chapter. I'm not going into any detail of how he arrives at these conclusions. If any of these topics interest you, because it's a broad range, I suggest you obtain the book any way you can. The library, I don't know if any libraries will carry it, but they might. And then, thrift stores, online, maybe even Google Docs. So here we go, chapter 3, the consciousness field. The shared foundation, just like gravity or electromagnetism, consciousness might be a fundamental field. If we accept that things like remote viewing or telepathy are real, according to Dr. Noel, it's a sign that our minds are all connected to this same source code. Number 2, distance is a myth. Distance is a myth. In the quantum world, far away doesn't exist. In the consciousness field, it's the same way. All information in the universe is right here and right now available to us. Our job isn't to travel to the information, but rather to tune in to the correct frequency to obtain the information that we're seeking. The best analogy that he came up with, and I've heard it before, that makes sense, is you think of fields as invisible, like Wi-Fi waves, microwaves, radio waves, any type of frequency that transmits information in our modern day era. Well, there's other frequencies that we, as humans, consciousness beings, we are not just flesh. We're inhabiting these bodies. This is my point of view. I don't think I read that anywhere Dr. Noel said. But as far as I'm concerned, I am not. This body is not me. I am in this body or merged with this body by whatever process, and I will leave it behind when it wears out or is killed. All right, I don't want to go off on a tangent. Mind over matter. This field doesn't just hold information, and it can actually nudge the physical world. This is called psychokinesis, or PK. If we understand how consciousness interacts with reality, the mystery of how UAPs move and behave starts to make a lot more sense. If we understand how consciousness interacts with reality, the mystery of how UAPs move and behave starts to make a lot more sense. Let me show you two things here, which I believe consciousness generated for me. There are two crystals. One's amethyst, shard of amethyst, and one, I believe, is clear quartz. The amethyst, I was going to see a hypnotherapist to get regressed because of some of the experiences I've had with non-human intelligences, I believe. So she had gone the night before to set up the room where we were going to have our session. And there in the room, there's a cot with a pillow and a blanket where I would be, and then a chair and a table for her, and another chair also for me. At any rate, when I got there in the morning, she said something odd had happened. She said, in the room, in the center of the pillow, where I was supposed to lay, was this. No one came into the room. She didn't put it there. She had never seen it before. So she figured it was a gift from the universe to me. So I took it. I accepted it, I should say. That is called an A-port. This is like some people believe consciousness somehow teleports or creates something and then just drops it into our physical world. I've have a whole bag of these A-ports, from nails, like I showed you those two pieces of quartz. Every one of these items has their own story. There's no explanation how they came to be. I had one, I literally heard a dropping noise in front of me, and lo and behold, there was a pen there. And all I had on was a shirt similar to this with no pockets, a t-shirt, and a pair of gym shorts. I didn't have a pen, but there it was. So that's kind of an example, real world. Next chapter is all about, it's called the dark matter connection. First talking point, the invisible majority. And in this chapter, the author introduces dark matter, or he called it invisible matter, the stuff that makes up most of the universe but remains invisible. It's a missing piece in understanding paranormal events. And the best way I can describe it, if you can see behind me, you can see the ceiling. It looks empty, right? I put my hands out. There's nothing here. Well, according to Dr. Noel, this dark matter, invisible matter, just because we can't touch it, feel it, see it, etc., with our senses, doesn't mean it's not there. He said we're walking through matter all the time. That's the best way I can explain it in my limited understanding. And this has to do with something he calls the MTR theory, matter-type ratio. And he says to think of it as a partnership, ordinary matter and dark or invisible matter working together. It's a simple way to explain spiritual or psychic events without needing magic, just physics we haven't fully mapped yet. And the next thing he goes on to speak of is called ghostly mechanics. And in this part of the book, he looks at things like levitation, during seances. It was a big thing back in the 1800s, physical mediums. I guess there's still some around, but not too many genuine ones. And these people, these physical mediums, demonstrated things like levitation, A-ports, the stuff like I was discussing a moment ago, things appearing out of thin air, and using the matter type ratio theory that he goes into great detail in this book, and I'm just not going to do it. These aren't miracles. They're just what happens when these two types of matter regular, what we call visible matter, the, the, the table, our bodies. You know what matter is. I don't have to explain that. So he said they, like aports or other things, levitation. That's what happens when these two types of matter interact in a specific way. So that was chapter 2, the dark matter connection. And like I said, I prefer to say invisible matter because dark matter for some people brings up, darkness, evil, associated that way. But this is not at all what he means by dark matter in the book. And chapter 5 is entitled Demystifying the Unknown. And he has 3 main points. Number 1, narrowing the scope. By grouping UAPs and spiritual experiences together, we actually make the problem easier to solve. We're shrinking the map so we can focus on what really matters. Number 2, higher vibrations. We explore the idea that we are conscious beings and even entire worlds. We explore the idea that there are conscious beings and even entire worlds existing at a higher frequency than our own. What I think of orbs, spirits, meaning souls, those people who used to inhabit human bodies. That's what I mean by spirits. So these conscious beings and even entire worlds exist at a higher frequency than our own. And if you're thinking, is he saying that when we go to the other side, the aliens are there? I would not say aliens, non-human intelligences, and just think of it that way. They're not alien because you've heard it all before, but it's true. We are all one. The third point, the prime mover. Everything paranormal points back to one thing: consciousness. Dr. Noel also touched on metamaterials, which might be the physical hardware designed to bridge the gap between these different levels of reality. And you can check out Linda Moulton Hall's channel, Earth Files, or her website. She has a whole list of things about metamaterials. But Dr. Noel links these metamaterials to consciousness. So now we move on to chapter 6, which is the final chapter of the book, which he calls A New Perspective. Dr. Noel presents the galactic myth, which is more likely that UAPs aren't flying around in outer space from light years away and coming here. Instead, they're probably crossing over from a different frequency, frequently a higher frequency of reality. Again, think of the Wi-Fi radio signals, radio frequency analogy. And I was thinking of a real world example of this. It doesn't involve aliens, but it does involve an invisible force or presence interacting with my life at a particular time, which you will see why it happened, is at least why I believe it happened. So I was a VA career employee as a licensed vocational nurse, aka LVN. In my last several years, I became a union activist and was a union steward full time for the union. And I was just about 60 years old. I had gone beyond my minimum retirement age, even though I had the time, because I wanted, you know, to be in the union. So anyway, I was working on a case one day, just like any other day, and you know, I'm, I was analyzing probably a disciplinary action and defending the employee. At any rate, I just had a thought pop into my head. You really should retire. And I thought, yeah, right. There's just too much to do here. And so I kept working. Then a few minutes later, again, the thought came a little more forceful this time. You really ought to think about retiring. And I just one ear and out the other, so to speak. And then it was almost like a shout. It wasn't a voice, but it was a very strong thought. Like, you need to retire now. So it was almost like a compulsion. I'm not saying it wasn't against my free will, but it was clear to me that someone from wherever knew something I didn't. So I got up, went into my union president's office, and retired then and there, and turned in my papers the next day. Lo and behold, 2 months later, after I retire, I get a phone call from a doctor at the VA where I also get my medical care. And he told me basically I had prostate cancer and I had to see a urologist. Now, I know a lot of people face this problem when they're working full time, and I don't know how they do it. So I went ahead and got my treatment, and my last day of treatment was January 3rd, 2020. And in February, I believe, is when everything started to lock down and people couldn't even to get to their cancer treatments. So I'm very grateful to whomever that was that told me to retire, because I might not have, had the outcome that I did. Because as I was retired, I chose radiation therapy for my treatment and hormone therapy, and I was able to be at peace about that. I was able to, whenever I went in that radiation machine 5 days a week for 4 weeks, I went into a meditative state and just kept praying the light shines in the darkness. And that was my mantra the whole time. And so far, it's now, 8 years later, I'm cancer free. Okay. The next point in chapter 6, entitled A New Perspective, is called the shared experience. When you look at stories from people who have had near-death experiences and those who claim to be UAP abductees, the details are eerily similar. They both fit the matter-type ratio theory perfectly. And again, he gives examples of near-death experiences. He compares and contrasts them with UAP abduction experiences, which is, I'm not going to go into detail here, but that's, again, a lot of these chapters, he has real world examples to back up his claims. And he closes the chapter with a word of caution. He said, just because these visitors share a frequency with what we call the afterlife doesn't mean they're the same thing. In other words, we just share the same neighborhood in the afterlife. They're not human. They're some sort of other intelligence. But we share the same realm, so to speak. But chapter 6 isn't the final word in the book. He has an epilogue, which is worth reading. The epilogue is entitled Death, and Noel discusses what he believes occurs to human beings when they die, and When a human dies, they suddenly discover their consciousness has survived death and they enter a new field. Think of these souls as new arrivals. So the new arrivals, according to Well, his research, etc., the new arrivals get an initial welcome. They have a peaceful arrival. They are met with an atmosphere of light, love, and total acceptance. Coming home. There's a powerful feeling of returning home and remembering that this is where we truly belong. I don't know about you, but personally, all through my life, I've always had the feeling I want to go home. I want to be home. Just a subliminal thing that pops in my head every now and then. I believe home is this realm that Dr. Noel is speaking about. And the last point he makes in the new arrivals is the new arrivals' perspective of Earth. Our life on Earth is shown to be as temporary, like a dream, a school, or a brief visit, while this new reality feels like the real thing. Second part of the epilogue, sensory and personal experience. There's unmatched beauty in the afterlife. We encounter colors, music, and landscapes that are far more beautiful than anything on earth. Our self expands. While our consciousness expands greatly, we are relieved to find out that we still keep our unique personality and essence. And that's good news for me, because I always wondered, well, if reincarnation is true, don't we have new personalities each time we go around? But evidently, according to Dr. Noel, no, we basically are the same person. I guess we just choose with our personalities to do evil things while we're here, as well as good things, I should point out. Connection to others. We realize that we are part of an infinite web of souls or family. Even if we don't recognize faces from Earth, we feel like we know everyone, because that old adage is true. We are one. Consciousness and travel. Guidance. Loved ones and guides are present to help us. There is instant communication. We communicate through thoughts and feelings rather than words. Our minds and hearts are completely open to one another. And there are no limits in this epilogue, it says, of time and space. Linear time and distance just fall away. They don't exist. They're illusions. We find out we can travel anywhere, and I would factor in any when, instantly, just by thinking about it. Again, attuning to that right frequency, which we won't have any problem, because we'll be using methods other than our biological brains. Personal responsibility. We find out there's no divine judgment or punishment. We must face our own actions with remorse and a desire to improve. And I'm going to digress here to share another real world story. Years ago, I took by years I mean maybe 5-6 years ago, I took a psychic mediumship class, 6-week class. And during that time, the section on mediumship, we would break off into groups and we would try to read each other. So I read this, one of my classmates, a lady, and I immediately saw a lot of this gray smoke around a woman. I really can't see who she was. And she kept saying, oh, I can't remember, we'll just say Mary. Oh, Mary, I was so wrong. I was so wrong. It's beautiful here. There's no hell. It's just, I can't tell you how beautiful it is. I'm so sorry for the way I treated you. And my classmate then told me, after I was doing the reading, that that was her mother. And her mother was always harping on her, Mary, saying that she was going to hell because she wasn't baptized in the Catholic Church. And she would say that almost every time they had some sort of communication or encounter as an adult, as well as all the way through her childhood, I guess. So that's, again, real world of that. There's no divine judgment. So the conclusion that Dr. Noel comes up with is the goal of consciousness of our time here on Earth is very simple. It's growth. Earth is a classroom, not a courtroom. Our main purpose here is to learn, to grow, and evolve into higher states of light and understanding at our own pace. And again, for those of you in the back who are paying attention, this is just the structure or the conclusions that Dr. Noel came up with. If you want to see how he came up with those conclusions, you need to get the book, and it's fascinating to read. I wouldn't say it's easy. It might be easy for those of you who are science-minded physicists, but for lay people like me, it was somewhat difficult, but life can be difficult at times. So in the bottom line that I see, he says, we are to evolve into higher states of light and understanding at our own pace. Light. What do I always say at the end of my episode? I'm going to say it now because this is the end. Let your light shine. Always be kind. And if you can't do that, at least try.